Welcome back to This Week. Bob Mueller is on vacation. I'm John Dwyer. Now for a panel of experts. As always, we have in the conservative syndicated radio talk show host Steve Gill, and joining us Mike Turner, the Democratic House Caucus Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
Well, the budget, $29.6 billion, passed. Took a while, gentlemen, didn't it?
Yeah.
And it looks like 10% spending cuts, 700 state employees will lose jobs. All in all, though, it felt like, and the reporters that I talked to that were up there, felt like the Democrats were, dare I say, gloating. It felt like a victory for the Democrats. Mike, do you agree?
Well, I don't know if you say it's a victory because it's such a terrible budget we had to go through, tough economic times. But we got most of what we wanted in the budget. The only thing we didn't really get was the bonding of the roads. We felt like we should have bonded them all this year. That way we would have put up to 15,000 people to work over the next couple of years, 6,000 immediately. But we got that staggered, worked out a compromise. Republicans didn't want any bonding, so we got this kind of compromise.
Yeah, the bonding now will be over 4 years. What did you specifically really like about it, though?
Well, the fact that there are some things in the budget that are potentially going to create jobs here. The mega site in West Tennessee, and that the governor was out recruiting for this past week. We kept a lot of things in the budget that, prenatal care for children, breast cancer items that will help that, services. Cervical cancer care was in there also that was going to be cut out in a Republican plan. A lot of different things like that stayed in. Small things and small amounts of money, but overall added up to a large pot. Veterans things for veterans coming back from Iraq, helping heroes, which is going to give scholarships to veterans coming back. That's a big deal, I think. I think both sides really agreed on that, even though the Republicans had it out of their budget. The House Republicans were for that also, but that gives a scholarship to returning Iraqi and Afghan war veterans. So that's a big deal.
It seemed like, Steve, though, to a politician, there was a bitter taste in their mouth because nobody was like feeling like this really got the job done. And, oh, by the way, we're going to have to go through this next year.
Well, I think, you had a couple of years ago, where the legislature was trying to figure out how to give away all the extra money that they had. It's a lot more fun to be a legislator when you're passing around Christmas goodies than it is having to make the tough kinds of decisions they were having to make in this budget. But families are having to make these same sort of tough decisions, and it makes sense that our legislators spending our money do the same thing. I mean, I think the best thing that they did is, contrary to what you're seeing in other states, where they've raised taxes, which continues to hurt business, continues to drive businesses out of work and put people out of work. The Tennessee legislature didn't raise taxes in any huge way, and I think that that's good for the economy of Tennessee, both in the short term and the long term. You look at these other states that have raised taxes after taxes after taxes, they're hurting a lot worse than we are. You look at states like Michigan, they got 14.1% unemployment. California is still grappling with billions and billions of dollars of shortfall. So all in all, I think that while it was a budget that didn't leave anybody happy and euphoric at how much they could spend, I think they acted responsibly.
And we were talking before the show, next year, I mean, this is, and you're not going to feel what happens in this budget until next year. This is going to be a recurring theme. It's not going to get any easier, Mike.
Right. The stimulus funds that came down from Washington plugged a hole in some of the departments that would stop the cuts from real severe, the hurt pain of the cuts from happening immediately. Next year, but we have downsized state government about $1 billion. We'll probably have to do at least that much again next year. And you're talking about a lot of people, a lot of jobs. We were able this year to put some safeguards in for some of the employees that will extend them, keep them on the job longer. And I think we should do that because that's our most valuable asset is our state employees. But as Steve mentioned, a couple of years ago, we did have some excess funds, and the governor insisted that we put some things back, and some of us didn't want to necessarily, but we did for a rainy day, and it's raining now, and I'm glad we got those extra funds in the rainy day fund.
I want to move the challenge, by the way, as we move ahead, is that there's no indication that the tough economic times are going to suddenly get better. We've got new unemployment figures in Tennessee, putting us in the double digits and maybe moving towards 11% unemployment. Some counties, as Mike and I were talking a few minutes ago, are much higher than that. But we're better off again than a lot of other states. But this economy is going to be tough for a long time, and even this budget that they've just passed is kind of an open item in terms of having to come back and figure out where they can later pare back if things get worse as the year moves ahead.
A story that also had as many highlights and headlines as the budget, and perhaps that's not the way it should be, but the emails, the controversial emails out of Black's office, and let's just take a look at the one that, and this made international news and so forth. At the end of the day, the person responsible for this, legal aid, was reprimanded, 20-year employee, no previous record, anything like this. At the end of the day, is this the punishment fit the crime?
I think it doesn't. It fits the rules of what the state of Tennessee requires with an employee. It was stupid. It was ridiculous to do it. But it was also stupid and ridiculous for David Letterman to make the comments he did that people have defended, including Harold Ford Jr., former congressman from Tennessee. Don Imus got fired for less offensive comments than what David Letterman did. You've got folks calling for this lady to get fired when another part-time intern in a Democratic office did something just as reprehensible. We need to apply the same standard in these cases, whether it's David Letterman or Don Imus, whether it's Sherry Goforth or some other intern.
Yeah, but the Democrats immediately reacted to their problem, and we asked for to be investigated, and if was found guilty, to be terminated. They gave the young man a chance to resign, and he took that chance to resign. But I think there's two distinct actions, two different actions between the two parties on how they deal with racism. Democrats moved to eliminate the problem, and the Republicans chose to kind of slap on the wrist type thing.
Well, my understanding is Black went to HR. She dealt with it and felt comfortable with the body of work, what the woman had done for this state and for her for many years, that she went through the correct channels. What's wrong with that?
Well, we have the very same HR department. All right, and Speaker Williams, I went to him, and he chose, after looking at the email, he said, no, we can't let this stand. He moved to get rid of it. Ron Ramsey made the call on the other side. Ron Ramsey thought we should just slap on the wrist. I'm not saying she should have been fired, but there should have been more done than what.
Well, keep in mind that this Democrat staffer was a part-time intern who was already on his way out, so they didn't do anything special.
That's actually,
gentlemen, we're out of time. I appreciate it. Mike Turner, Steve Gill, thank you for your time very much. And gentlemen, have best of the weekend if you can. When we come back, more comments about the Capitol Hill email scandal. It continues.